Hey, we're just getting set up here.
All right.
And about to go live. I still haven't figured out how to go live on Instagram.
Yeah, apparently that's not working for me, just so you know.
It's we're on YouTube. We're good.
All right, let's do
Okay.
this. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Undercover Dumpster Fire. I am Matt Pitcher, and undercover retired detective Matt Pitcher, I guess. I got Willy, as always. What's going on, Willy?
What's up? Hey, I'm a retired firefighter turned counselor / goofy person, but I'll be serious today. Mostly.
First of all, he is a liar about being serious. We can all agree that that will not happen the entire time. And as you can see, we're all like in different places than our norm. And I've got a support. As everybody I think has seen, I've been traveling on the road the last 2 days. I'm headed to Pennsylvania, and tonight I'm spending the night at my brother's. So apparently I have a support teddy bear with me during this session, so I'll take it. And then we have, and this is incredible, and this for our third episode to have her on is so awesome. I've been on her podcast before. She has an incredible podcast, I'll Hold a Place for Your Darkness. She is an Australian police officer. She has done all kinds of things to help mental health. She is now, make sure I say it right, a life coach, right, or a mental health coach.
Master.
Yeah, well, life and wellness coach.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to show how much she volunteers and helps out, she was even so kind as to marry a firefighter to help them out. I mean, that's how giving she is as a police officer.
It is.
Married up.
It's where my heart is.
She describes better half right there. You always hear, my other's the better. Well, we already know in this case. I've never met her husband, so I probably should not say any of this.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Lurking.
He's pretty. He can take a joke along with this. It's all right.
That's
So,
good.
we always start every single episode with questions that came in during the week, and Erin, luckily for you, I just get to pick a question for you, so you'll get to enjoy that.
Hey, there you go.
But I'll pick on Willy first,
Yeah.
and then I'll go and I'll leave the best for last and go with Erin on the third. Willy, your question this week that came in is, what is the longest fire you've had to battle? How long was it, and what were the details on that?
The longest fire, I'd have to say there was a string of apartment fires that we had this one year, and it seemed like every 3-story wood framed apartment that had 20 or more units, at least one of them caught fire that year. And then we would burn the roof off, because if you don't know, if you don't catch it before it gets in the roof, then it's going to burn all the way across, and then you lose the roof, and you basically surround and drown is what they call it. You don't say that in public. That's what you're doing.
Insider tip for everybody right there.
Yeah, insider. So I'd say a couple of those went multiple shifts where the fire's out, but then that's the fun part, is putting it out, like the big flames, and then there's the cleanup and the mop up, and then putting everything away, and then some fires, literally, we would just, you drop your hydrant, your hose at the hydrant, and then go. And sometimes it'd be, several hundred yards down the road, and hoses everywhere, and it's snowing, so I'd have to say the longest one was probably 12, maybe 14 hours of just straight the whole time. And
like you don't get any, like you're in it the whole time. Like there's no stepping off, anything like that. You got to go.
You do. Because remember, with firefighters, we were in SCBA.
Yeah, you guys got to cycle through, because your tanks only last a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you go in and out, but you might still be, in the rotation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not, you're not going to take a nap. It's get ready to go again.
Yeah, because you get out, you have your bottle, and usually every few bottles that you change, some of them last 15 to 20 minutes, depending on your breathing rate and size, and then how hard you're working. And then every now and then they'll have you go and get checked out medically, and they'll look at your blood pressure and all that stuff to see, are you okay to keep going? And, so I'd say 12 hours was the longest, and it was an apartment fire in the winter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that better? Now, I'm curious, is that better or worse than in the summer because of like all that equipment you're wearing? I almost feel like I'd
Uh,
rather it be winter.
I would love no, not
No.
winter, no, because it's freezing, man. You know, like actually, because everything's not watertight, so hydrants might be leaking
Gotcha.
some, and like hoses are
Oh.
leak, you know, and like so it's cold, and then you're wet,
Yeah.
and then you freeze, and then you have
Yeah. My hubby and his crew fought a fire like I think a few weeks ago now, and they were saying they were up like in the roof trying to ventilate and do all the things, and then they because of the temperature difference, their masks got all foggy.
yeah.
Like their bare
Oh.
masks, and they couldn't see what they were doing. So then they were like, oh, do I like take it off so I can actually see that I'm like,
Yeah.
where I'm like putting a hole into the roof, but then I'm breathing in smoke. So it's like that
Oh,
juxtaposition
totally.
of like which is better for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then depending on the agency or department, the culture, they like some people are like, "Why do you have your mask on?" You know, and like all like
Yeah.
hardcore about it, and you're not supposed to be breathing in smoke these days, you know, like it used to a long time ago,
Exactly.
you know, but not today. Anyway,
Nope.
uh yeah.
I d-
Can I ask Aaron, where's your husband generally working at? You don't have to say the city or whatever, but where's he at?
Yeah, no, we're in Massachusetts, one of the inner Boston cities.
Cool.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
awesome. Yeah, Boston. All right.
All right. Well, you're good at a lot of dialects, but you're gonna need to work on that one.
I always get them wrong. I
I
get
was
them
gonna
terribly
say, I'm
wrong.
like, he doesn't sound like that, but that's okay.
No. Yeah. I sometimes it might come out totally different, like Asian that I meant to be like Indian.
That's
I
all
don't know.
right.
Yeah.
That's all right. I think I've influenced him. Like, maybe his accent is changing. So
Yeah. The Austin now. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, that was a good one. All
Yeah.
right. So the question I got this week, and I think I answered it from somebody else a long time ago, but I'll answer it again. It asked what the most terrifying moment in my career was, and I'm gonna answer it twice because I'm not sure. I'm assuming they were talking about my undercover career because it was off of an undercover post. But I'll answer both in uniform and undercover. In uniform, my most terrifying moment had a few pretty good ones, but there was one time I was with my partner and we were riding bikes and we were actually getting to ride. It was kind of like an off-duty gig for the department, but we were riding uptown together, which for us was like the coolest thing in the world because all the time we worked what was considered the worst neighborhood in Charlotte. So this was kind of getting to hang around people that didn't want us dead. Uh, so it was kind of nice.
that's always a bonus, man.
I like this place.
Or at least that's what we thought.
Yeah.
So we were on the bikes and we watched this vehicle get pulled over. I'm watching the vehicle and we were a very busy district, my normal district. So we were very tactically sound and watched a couple things and saying, "Ooh, I really would not conduct a traffic stop like that." And all of a sudden, I'm watching a traffic stop and I see this kid climb out. The officer is dealing with the front driver and not paying attention to the people in the back. And I watch this kid pull himself out the window out the back behind the officer. And so I yelled at my partner and said, "Hey, we're about to have to do something." And that quick, the kid gets off and starts running. So we're on bikes. We chase after him down this hill, and which I thought was so cool because all these people are getting to see us do a chase, and nobody ever gets to see us chase except for the people yelling for the bad guy to get away. For once, I had a good audience for once until we went down this hill, and then there wasn't anybody. But while we're chasing the kid, he pulls a gun from his waistband, which not uncommon necessarily, but one of two things always happen when they do that. They usually try to throw the gun, right? They just want to get it out of their possession. They don't want to do anything with it, but they know they're in real trouble for having it. In this particular case, he didn't throw it, and he keeps running. And my partner, who's a little bit in front of me, is like, "We got a problem." He's not tossing, still holding the gun. And the guy, this is where I mess up. The kid rounds a corner and falls. My partner right in front of me does the right thing, passes him up, right? We can come back in and kind of do it more tactically. I thought I could make the corner and stay eyes on him. I lost him for a second, round the corner, and he's on the ground, and I'm at the bike, and I'm basically right on top of him at that point, and he's kind of rolls over and is pointing the revolver right at me. And at that point, I realized I messed up, and I can actually see the barrel aim for my head, and he pulls the trigger, and the gun doesn't go off. Like, it doesn't do anything. I take the front tire, and the rest of this is not overly important, but do what I need to do to get control of the situation in a really big hurry. And then once he's in cuffs, my partner's like, man, he blood everywhere, and not just from getting him in custody, but looks at his thumb, and there's a hole in his thumb. When he pulled the trigger, he had his thumb between the hammer and the point. So when he pulled the trigger, it dug into his thumb, and that's why it didn't go off.
Dang.
Otherwise, I was a dead man.
You got some angels, man.
Yeah, that one I think about a lot more than I wish I did, to be quite honest. That one stays with me.
Understandable.
Yeah, so that's my one in uniform. Undercover, both of the long-term assignments, I came to grips in both assignments, or I had thought in both assignments that my chances of making it through both times were probably not overly great. So there was always a constant element of something is going to go wrong and it's going to be done. But the number one that stands out, the first time I went with Billy in the second case, actually I'll say one for each of them. In the first case, when I got interrogated overnight for 8 hours and I knew other people were there to kill me if I messed up, that was obviously terrifying. On the second case, when I went to Billy's homemade range at his farm the first time to go shooting, and he had me go down, that was beyond terrifying.
Yeah.
So that's my question.
Yeah, man.
Now that
Wild ones, man.
Yeah.
I broke the mood down with that one. Yeah, all right, Erin, I got one for you.
I don't know.
Actually, I really want to ask
is
you
this the one
too.
that Abby
So I'm going to give
earlier
you.
in the week? Yeah, I'm here
Oh,
for
actually, I do want you to. I want you to answer that one as well. Yeah, so I have that.
Okay.
You have to answer that one. Plus, you have to answer. I want to know about your greatest moment in Australia and as a police officer, and then also, how did you not get killed by any wild animals in Australia? Like, it's the most dangerous place for wild. So, everybody talks about Florida, right, Willie? About how bad Florida is. We're like completely safe compared to Australia. So I'm curious.
You got some alligators.
Surprised you made it.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Okay, so I'll take maybe Abby's question first.
Perfect.
Yes. Thank you, Abby. I saw that on Instagram earlier the week. So our lovely friend of the pod, Abby, asked, I think she had interviewed perhaps a New Zealand police officer, and obviously their laws are maybe a little bit different than ours. So we are allowed to be armed. So when I started my career, I had a very old school revolver. A 38, and it was obviously loaded, and I think we had either 1 or 2 speed rounds on our belts. And then I would say maybe 3 years, I think, before I left, the whole force transitioned over to semi-autos. They were, I think they stayed with the Smith & Wesson MP ones. So we had to do, our whole police force had to then get qualified into that, and so then we actually did have personalized firearms that were just for us to use, whereas the revolvers we all sort of shared, and we just, when we signed on for our shift, when we got our kit, that was sort of, you have your favorites. So I, obviously being a chick, my hands tend to be a little bit smaller, so I preferred like a smaller size or like smaller handled revolver. And then when you got your own or your designated semi-auto, it was more just about finding the grip that was like most comfortable. So we were allowed to walk around and be armed. I sort of, the last few years of my career, I was a detective working in town at the armed crime squad, where we would do like on-call shifts. So I would take a firearm home in like a special case and all that kind of thing. And then if I got like a few times I got called out to, so like our purview was obviously armed robberies, being from the armed robbery squad or the armed crime squad. So it was armed robberies, kidnappings, non-fatal shootings, and aggravated burglaries where there was like a serious or like significant injury or something like that. So then if we were on a call, we would have our firearm and then have to go wherever. So we handled sort of that typically higher level offence all over the state of Victoria, which was the state police force that I worked for way back when.
Can I ask a quick question, just because curious? Because and this probably a lack of knowledge on my part, so I apologize.
No,
but
it's
like,
okay.
so when we're off duty in the States, most police officers carry all the time.
Yeah, we have very different gun laws in Australia than you guys do.
That's what I was curious. Yeah, because now, was it ever, just out of curiosity, because I know there were several times where I ran into people that had different thoughts of me, like from when I was on patrol kind of thing, in uniform, where I dealt with them in uniform and also I'm not in uniform, where there was a comfort factor to having that with me. Like, did you ever run into that situation where you're like, oh crap, I'm not armed?
Not really, because like obviously, I worked at the crime squad, so people have access to firearms, but the process to go through getting a firearm legally is a little more of like a strenuous process than perhaps here. Like, I can't go to our equivalent of Walmart back home and just purchase it and have it in my hot little hand within a 48-hour supposed background check, or not all states here I guess have background checks. So we, very, very long story short, we had one horrific mass shooting in, I want to say it was 1996, in Port Arthur in Tasmania. And he utilized, high caliber semi-automatic weapons, and our Prime Minister of the day banned them from our country. So there was a buyback, all of the things. And obviously our countries, our laws, very, very different. Different cultural factors, I think, play a big part as well, as opposed to, like, you can still get a firearm, you just have to obviously apply for a license. We have very strict storage laws. And, most people who have guns, like, they're hunters or they, like, live on a farm. You kind of don't typically find people just like randos, just with firearms. It's just not very common.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's great.
yeah. So in terms of like operating as a police officer, like, it is one thing that I think, having lived here for 10 years now, I have a different level of understanding and appreciation, and I think reverence for police officers in this country, because complacency is really easy to have happen, but at the same time, I think hypervigilance, when every single interaction that a police officer is having with anyone in this country, you actually have to anticipate and expect that they're armed. And that's not, it's obviously something that you have in the back of your mind, but back when I was a police officer, more often than not, they would be armed with a different kind of a weapon. And so I think that is also something that maybe gets lost a little bit when there's a lot of conversation about interactions between members of the public and police officers, just from like I would say, somewhat independent perspective. I think that level of hypervigilance that American police officers have to function at, I think is a little unique, and that's just my opinion, I guess.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah. That's great that you didn't have to deal with so many weapons. I mean, there's probably other weapons though. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, like there's still firearms, because obviously that we have a bit of a challenging like bikie element, and organized crime and all. Like, I mean, look, people want shit, they're gonna get shit. Like, you know,
money
so.
to buy it.
Very true.
But not to, I wouldn't say, you know, to the extent of like an everyday police officer would have those massive interactions. But yes, as Abby said, you know, and especially as the things that every American likes to say to an Australian, that's not a knife, that's a knife. So yeah, you would come across people carrying knives a little bit more than firearms.
So I did think of Crocodile Dundee, but I wasn't gonna say it. I figured I had already played my card with the music that I was gonna leave it alone.
Yeah,
that's all right. I find if you get on the front foot about these things, you know, it makes it so much easier.
Yeah.
You'll actually like this, Willy. After my husband and I got married in Australia, and he got back to his firehouse afterwards, and you know, you got like your photos up on the wall.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they replaced his photo with one of like Crocodile Dundee.
Nice.
It was so good. He loved it. Yeah.
Nice.
Yep. They have to mess with you constantly if that's, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You just got to be part of it.
Exactly.
That's good. Yeah. Well, and so can I ask Erin too, from a coaching perspective, what do you, how do you help somebody? I know Matt's got questions too, but I just want to add to this. How do you, from your perspective, how do you help somebody who feels that hypervigilance all the time, can't turn it off? You know, what kind of thought process do you have, or how do you support somebody like that?
Yeah, that's a great question, and you know, you're potentially more experienced and knowledgeable in terms of that than me. But I think it's more about like I think recognition is important, like recognizing if you are operating in that kind of state, and whether it's something you recognize about yourself, whether it's someone that you love is pointing that out to you. Because obviously being hypervigilant at work is a positive, you know, in the right circumstances outside of work, and if it's impacting, you know, your family time and all that kind of thing, it's not. So I would think more just about, you know, that level of recognizing when you are experiencing that and noticing your physiological responses. And it would be working with that person, because obviously everyone that we speak to is very unique, and even though we might all be first responders, everyone reacts and responds differently. So it would be how their physiological response is, and finding things that would kind of help them, you know, perhaps come out of that fight or flight state, come out of that sympathetic nervous system response, and find things that help bring them into the parasympathetic, you know, response, help them calm down. And what works for one person isn't going to work for another. So it would be very unique in terms of what helps calm them, what helps ground them, all of those sorts of things is in a general way where I would begin to try to help someone in that instance.
That's awesome. Yeah, totally. Can I just insert? So for the longest time, I've always said, get out of your head and into your body. And then I was on Instagram the other day, and so Reese Witherspoon and Will Ferrell had a movie recently, and so I've been following both of them. And so Reese Witherspoon was giving a little talk on get out of your head and into your hands, and I was like, all right, well, you know, she's famous, I'm not, so I'm giving her credit, but she was talking about that same thing, like anxiety being in your head a lot about what's going to happen or what could happen. A lot of it doesn't happen, and then needing to get physically active into something grounding you in this moment. It's cool. It sounds like you're doing that too. That's awesome.
Yes, no, as well as my coaching, I'm studying psychology and counseling too, working on my bachelor's. So I'm such a bit of a nerd and just a sponge with like all of the information. And it was actually really like, I will commend you. I think I watched, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, I watched I don't know if it was your podcast or one of your lives that you guys did together. And you actually said something that was really impactful that I wanted to admit that I'm actually going to steal.
You can't. No, you're cut off. Your part's over now. Actually, okay. So it's great having you on.
Fireman comes through.
Like, peace out. I know. It was in terms of your work with first responder. It was something I really loved. That it was like part of the reason that I do coaching is because I think it helps first responders feel like they're still maintaining some type of being in charge and that sense of an element of control when if they're struggling with their mental health, they're feeling out of control. So being in charge of, what they're coming to us about. But you said something in the way that you phrase it to them instead of saying like, how did that make you feel, which can be a little triggering for some kind of people. It was something in terms of like how did that make you respond, or how did you react?
What was your reaction?
Like that answer that they give, it actually will explain what they were feeling, but it's a less confrontational way, and I'm
totally
1,000,000% stealing it. So thanks.
Hey, good for you. Yeah, totally. Experiment with it. Just try that.
Yeah.
Anybody listening, you can also do the same thing. If you want to know, especially men, because we're not the greatest, this is generalizing, but I know we're not the greatest at emotions. And so if you say, how do you feel? Immediately you're like, I don't know. And then it's fine. And so, yes, ask what's your reaction to that? And you'll get some. That's really easy. You borrow that all you want.
Thank you. But I'm crediting you. So
hey.
I think it was me that said it, Erin. If you just want to fix that on
there.
I think it sounded like Willy, but
Matt's trying to steal. He's undercover right now.
Exactly.
Yep. But hey, hats off for doing coaching too, because I just want to speak on that topic first, just a second. With coaching, I think it's great that you do that because it's not what the cops typically would get. They get like the department psychologist that has to do all the evaluations and all that. And you can go to
we're
them.
not going to talk to. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think I shared in the past, I've had clients that went to those, lost their jobs because they, were trying to share stuff and they said they were suicidal. And then, here we go. And it wasn't active suicidal. It was passive. Like, I wish I wouldn't wake up, stuff like that. So long story, just to say, I love that coaching is kind of in its own realm. It's not, you don't have to be diagnosed and do all this stuff. So there's not as like the risk is lower for cops to seek coaching, which is cool. You just got to find one like yourself. So
thank you. That really means a lot. And I look at it like our mental health and the resources that are available. It's on a continuum. So there's people like you who are licensed and obviously practice at like a different level to the resources that I can provide. But I sort of like the way that I sometimes like describe it is it's like bridging the gap between what peer support can offer and what a mental health clinician can provide. And there's a vast area in between there that sometimes you just need someone to listen to you. That's as simple as it is and help you work through stuff.
Actually, I'll piggyback on that big time because that like hindsight's 2020, and I wish it could have made a huge difference in my life, like. Because obviously when I was at my worst, I wasn't willing to see a professional, or I shouldn't say professional, but a psychiatrist or whatever at that point. I was scared of, like Willy talks about, I was scared of losing my job, right? Yeah. When I went to the one for the department, obviously I knew what I had to say to be cleared, right? I knew what I could and could not say that would get me in trouble. So I said what I had to say to make sure I couldn't get labeled with PTSD or anything like that. So that I would keep my job. What would have been monumental that I hope, and anybody that's listening, this is a great opportunity to think about this. If you're not willing to go to a therapist at this time, maybe think about at least going to go see a coach, someone that will at least listen to you so you can talk and get it out. And that can sound, and then speaking from experience, instead of waiting 10 years, it could do a lot for you. Unbelievable amount for you. So I can't speak about that enough. That is huge to have something like that. To be a coach is awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. That's really kind. Yeah. No, I'm very fortunate to do what I do, and I love helping people in whatever capacity I'm able to. And I think the main thing that I would want to preface it by saying is obviously coaches can't diagnose or treat any kind of mental health condition. So for me, it's like if you're coming to me and I'm recognizing in you that you are needing more support, that doesn't mean I'm going to like shut the door on you. It means we're going to engage, and then I'm going to go through my network, because through what I do, I meet some incredible people and who have more education and everything than I do. So then I can also just help you along that path. So it doesn't mean that we can't talk, but it's important that, I'm not trying to help you when I'm not the right person for you. But that's okay. All that it really, like, I actually don't give a shit if I'm not the right person, whether it's a personality clash or whether you just need a higher level of support. That's okay. I'm more than happy to help you along that path, as long as you get help in the right way that suits you and that is of the need that you require. That's all that matters.
Yeah, that's awesome. That sounds like triage in a way.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, if there's a mass casualty or something, you're always looking for who's dead, who's survivable, and who's like gonna be all right, just on their own, and who needs to go, and like who's bleeding the most,
Exactly.
How do we get them to where they need to be? That's awesome.
Exactly. Thank you.
So, and I'm gonna go with a personal question now.
Yeah.
What made you decide to go into this realm instead of going back into law enforcement? Because I know you'd never be a firefighter. I get that. I don't want to put you down and say that you would do something like that, so I won't do that.
No. Well, I am married to, and like, no offense, Willy, but you're retired, so you won't take offense. I am married to probably the most handsome firefighter going around. So I just want to that's his realm. I'm just gonna leave him to it.
I respect that.
We'll get his photo and post it online afterwards.
It's in the month of June in the calendar.
There you go.
Yeah. See, why don't cops have the calendar?
We do.
Busy.
The month of June is the Boston cream pie donut, and then we have the glazed donut in July. All right, so we have it. All right.
Yeah.
It's sponsored by Krispy Kreme.
Dunkin' Donuts too.
So I definitely sort of looked into law enforcement over here. I actually kind of got through the process to become a dispatcher for our local area and stuff, and it kind of just family wise, it kind of just wasn't the right time to try to do those rotating shifts with a little baby and my husband's rotating shifts. It was kind of just going to be a little bit too much like hard work. I think not to sound arrogant or prideful or anything like that, but I would have had to start from square one, because none of my qualifications from back home would have carried over. And it just, I don't know, it's, again, I think maybe I've given a bit of a insight into it, but policing here is very different. You don't work one up at home. They actually banned that, and even basically our traffic people were the only ones working one up kind of towards the end, and then they even banned that, so you rarely work alone. And then I worked in a lot of squads and offices where you were a crew dynamic, so that's kind of the kind of policing aspects that I sort of really lent towards. So I have all of the respects in the world for people who do it here, but it was just at the time of my life and when it all happened, and when I moved over here, just wasn't for me anymore.
So how'd you transition that into wanting to do the coaching side of things and get into that? What kind of drove you that way?
A good question. So when I first moved to Boston, I worked at a suicide prevention and crisis counselling organisation, brilliant organisation here called Samaritans. And so, I worked there for, I think about 2.5 years all up. And so again, shift work, you know, and talking to people in crisis and all that kind of thing. So it's sort of, this kind of thing's always been a little in my wheelhouse, because obviously you deal with a lot of the same sorts of things as a police officer when you're, you know, in uniform, boots on the ground, or that kind of thing. And I think it was after I'd had my second little boy, and I'm like, I'm in my mid-30s, like, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? And you know, I my husband's 15 years older than me, so there's going to be a day when he's going to want to retire, and he'll be like, it's on you, kids. So so I sort of was just, like, I really just wanted to sort of be in a position to help people, but still with like very, very young children at that stage. I'm kind of like, I need something that's like not mid-level, but as in something that's kind of the qualifications are, you know, manageable for me at that time. And I think it was actually a therapist friend of mine who you know, asked if I'd ever heard of life coaching, and I hadn't. And so, being the nerd that I am, I did a whole bunch of research for about 6 months and found a reputable organization to go through, who are accredited with the ICF, which is the International Coaching Federation. So they have standards and codes of ethics and all of the things that you have to follow. So I did 2 like classes, like certifications through them. So that's what Willy alluded to earlier. Like, technically I became a master certified life coach. It just sounds a little wanky, so I like tend not to use it all that much. And then
if you just say master, we'll be like,
what?
Exactly. But then again, you know, I'm also now like studying through a psychology and counselling degree back home in Australia. So I also additionally don't want people to think I have my master's when I don't. It's sort of just a delineation, not to confuse anyone there. And I went got a trauma, you know, just like a sort of standard level trauma certification for coaching too. And I just feel really, really passionately about it, and I just think it's one way to be able to help people, and even, you know, I know that there is so much cultural stigma attached to reaching out, and like you were both saying, people going through their EAP, you know, I don't want to say EAP programs because I'm saying programs twice, but the EAP systems that that, you know, that there is that they're scared of losing their job, they're scared of people gossiping, all of that kind of thing. Coaching is a confidential practice. We sign a contract, all of that kind of thing. But I think it's important to give people options, and so I saw it as a way to help people who were maybe struggling like a little bit, but not completely at that, you know, end of the spectrum where they really need a clinician, but also maybe they don't want to talk to peer support, or they don't want to talk to a colleague, or they don't feel like they can open up to a spouse. I understand the culture. I, you know, swear like a sailor. I'm, you know, I was a police officer for almost a decade. I've been married to a firefighter for almost a decade. I know both sides of the coin. So it's, really just helping people where I'm at now. And then all of my schooling and my extra studies, it's just making me more informed, and you know, as a coach, you don't have to deal with like the insurance factor. Like, it's, you know, I can talk to people across state lines. I talk to people at home in Australia. I can deliver services to anyone via this medium, which most people are pretty comfortable with now after COVID. Anywhere, anytime. So awesome. It's I just I feel very passionately about helping those people, and you know, it's still my everyday life. My husband still comes home after a 24-hour shift, and I can read how he's feeling by like the look on his face. So I know that, and that's, you know, I want to help as much as I can. So
One other question I had with that too, Erin. What about spouses of first responders? Do you work with them at all as well?
Yes, I do. Perfect. Yep, I offer. Right. So obviously, I think sometimes they are the forgotten
Yes.
forgotten aspect of this community, and I'm sort of working on some bits and pieces and collaborating with some really wonderful organizations to sort of start working on some psychoeducation to be able to provide for spouses, because typically they're the ones who are actually going to see when their partners are coming home and they're in that elevated state of hypervigilance, when they're experiencing perhaps like the early stages of PTSD or acute stress disorder, obviously like in the beginning stages, the fatigue or insomnia, like all of the things that people in our profession struggle with. They see it at home, but they might not have like no one's told them this is what you should be watching out for. This is the point where they should probably start getting some help. Don't wait till it's here. But then if you find yourself here, well, then where do I turn? What do I do? Who do I reach out to? So that's kind of something that, in amongst everything else that I've got going on, I'm trying to sort of slowly work on something like that. And then
that's awesome. That's so needed. So that is really
thank
awesome.
You. And then I share a few mental health and wellness tips. I host a radio program on the Thin Line Rock station twice a week. Tuesday.
I'm embarrassed I haven't gotten to see it yet. I apologize.
Oh no, that's okay. No stress.
Or listen to it.
No. Look, they lovely couple of guys who started that up, and it's kind of like I try to do it like with most things I do. I try to go with like a little bit of the humor, and then I kind of like suck you in, and then I hit you. I'm like a bit of a sucker punch with like, oh, here's some mental health and wellness stuff, but like, and now he's a cool song. So that's I think
cool.
It's just trying to get the message out where I can.
You have to tell them a little bit disappointed though, because they put out a meme the other day on Instagram, and it was a mugshot of a guy with a black eye. Clearly, things hadn't gone well for him. And what song does this remind you of? I thought for sure the first answer would be "I Fought the Law" and the law won. And there was like a bunch. I finally put it in. I was so disappointed by that.
Wasn't that? What was it?
I forget what some of them were. There were a couple.
I think I was trying to figure it out.
I just put your link to your website, to your coaching website, and it has a lot of that information in there, just in case anybody wants to see. I know that'll be on YouTube in the comments, and we'll post this thing online afterward.
Thanks, Willy. That's real kind. Yeah, and I offer complimentary consultations. So I just had someone reach out to me last night. We're just going to have a chat and see if I'm the right one for you, if I'm the person that can help. That's what it's all about. And if I'm not the right person, well, then I'm more than happy to spend my time helping you find the right person. And that's just what it's about. Like we are a community, and sometimes we can be a little insular. So trying to find, the right culturally competent provider is one of the key things that's most important, I think.
1000%, yeah.
And you would know that more than most, Willy.
But I hear that from people all the time. They're like, hey, I never, it's so cool that you at least know, roughly what's going on about either fire or police or whatever. And but then I always hear the bad stories too. And I've had my own share of that, where you like went to talk to somebody and then they didn't really understand. And then like I'm operating on the principle that most of the change that happens in a helping profession like coaching, counseling, that kind of thing, most of it is actually with the relationship with the provider. Like, how much do you trust me? And it's how far we can go. And if you don't trust me at all, then we can't go anywhere. We're just going to talk about the weather,
Keep it superficial if that's it doesn't work that way.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Hey, there was something real quick I wanted to throw out there, because we made a comment, Matt, you made a comment about police getting a PTSD diagnosis, and I did a study in Southwest Michigan, so Lower Peninsula, where I was from, I guess I'm still from there. Anyway, did a study with a sheriff's office. I won't say which one or anything, but it was a grant-funded project. And I went in and did a bunch of training, resilience training, trying to teach them skills so that they, can handle adversity better. And also because it was a grant. I had to measure stuff. And so what I gave them, I gave over 100 officers the PTSD checklist. It was anonymous.
Yeah.
So they had to fill it out and then submit it in, and there was no names on it. It didn't matter who it was. But I want to just tell you that so you could score a high of 80, that's the maximum, and then 32 is the cutoff threshold for diagnosis for PTSD. And 67% of the officers that took that test measured, at least reported on this anonymous survey, that they met criteria for PTSD. So it's kind of strange, and I hope we can address this in sometime in the future more. It's like you can't have a PTSD diagnosis, but 67% of your guys have it.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. Yeah,
And
there needs to be more conversation about it, and that you're exactly right.
Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there because it's like that. There's some tension between like I don't want to have that diagnosis, and then you got the military people that come in that already had a PTSD diagnosis.
Yep.
And so then they become an officer, a police officer, or a firefighter, and then that carries on. So anyway, just I think that there's a lot that needs to be done in that realm around awareness and advocacy. So.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing. I think it's important for people to recognize that is also where the strain level is for our officers, and it shouldn't go unrecognized the fact that more, and I don't want to drag the tone down, but more first responders are dying by suicide than in a line of duty death.
Yeah.
So it's important that awareness is out there, not just to obviously try to prevent that, but for people struggling to know that they're not alone. They're not the only one experiencing a lot of this shit. And additionally, like I think Willy, you might have mentioned it earlier, like, you know, or maybe it was Matt, like passive suicidality is incredibly common amongst first responders, and people either A, don't know what it is, or B, they don't talk about it because they don't think anyone is going to understand, and it's very, very common.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly. I would argue just about all of them that I've ever worked with considered it. It considered, what if I just didn't wake up? You know, like that would be nice. That's passive suicidal ideation. You know, they don't have any intent. They're not gonna. They have a plan. You know, every cop knows how. Most men will complete suicide via gunshot. Most women will do it less lethal. You know, overdose, stuff like that.
Which is why a lot more women actually attempt, but more men die because they use more lethal methods.
See, yeah, we got to figure this out. That's part of why we're doing this. You know,
another thing with law enforcement is they'll stop wearing their vest. That's also another sign. So if you have a friend that all of a sudden stops wearing his vest,
getting reckless, getting reckless, like cruising on the highway,
not calling for backup, all of that kind of stuff. I've spoken to, and Matt, you would know, like speaking to a lot of people on the podcast, and they talk about this kind of stuff a lot.
A lot. Yeah, well, thank you for what you're doing, Erin.
Yes, thank you very, very much.
And our commenters, too, by the way. The people that were commenting in there, Abby.
I can't see the comments. So, Abby, hello. I just saw somebody, John Collins, on here. Yeah. And Abby, this will make you talked about how you had a 6-shooter when you first started policing. He actually, when he joined the force, because I know him personally, it was actually where you had a single round load with the musket type ammo. That was his first one on the force, actually.
Is this for real?
No, he's actually older than me, and it's one of the few people.
The next emoji he sends is not going to be thumbs up.
Yeah, that's going to have to be filtered. I'm pretty confident of that.
We just laughed. Yeah. Thank you, John, for putting up with Matt. Yeah.
So to end this program, we do this every week, Abby. You get to go last because they'll give you time to think of it because I didn't give you any prep work on this. Obviously, we talk about some serious stuff on here. We got to end lighthearted, so we have to all tell a funny story. And that way we end with something humorous. Doesn't have to be long, just something quick. So think about it, and I'll go first, and then Willy, and then you can go.
All right.
The funny, which one do I want to go with this one? So I think the funny one I'll do this time. when I was undercover, we had someone. I did a podcast on this, but I'm going to give the Cliff Notes version on it. We had someone who had committed it was a double or triple homicide up in New Hampshire, and supposedly was in Charlotte. And trying to look him down, we had him at a hotel. We lost him there, but he's supposedly still in Charlotte. And we used some of the computer systems. Found out he had a cousin in Charlotte. And we're like, all right, we got to figure out a way. Got out on the house, watched it, nothing coming and going except his cousin who was a female. And we're like, we got to figure out something out. And so I decided, well, I'm just going to call. This was back in the day when you actually had house phones. I'm just going to call the house phone, see who picks up. Maybe it'll be a male picking up. Maybe I'll hear a male in the background, and that'll kind of give us something to go on. So I called up and come out and say, hey, is Stacy there? And he's like, no, I'm sorry, you have the wrong number. And I'm just like, are you sure? I haven't been on a date in so long, and she was so sweet. I told her my wife died, and it's been really a struggle, and I really don't think she gave me the wrong number. Are you positive? Could it be off by number? Do you know a Stacy? And she's like, oh, I can't believe, how long ago did your wife die? And so we got talking to her for a long time. Could not hear anybody in the background. And she goes, well, did you want to come over here and come on a date over here? And I was like, sure. Do you want me to pick up some food or anything? She goes, well, pick up a bottle of wine and some food, and we'll have a date at my house. All right, that'll be great.
Jesus Christ.
So get off the phone with her, and I go to my Sarge and says, Sarge, guess what? We're going to find out for sure. I got a date with the cousin at her house to find out. And he's like, as he said to me a lot of times in my career, you're out of your mind. You're not doing that. And then I was able to convince him otherwise, and got it to at least where they would just line up outside. I'd go in the house, start the date, see what I see, and they would line up at the door while I'm inside the house, ready to go. The happy ending to the story, he was inside the house while I was there. Let them in, arrested him, and he got convicted of a triple murder, triple murder. So,
Jesus,
but yeah, I felt like I should have gotten an award for that, though. Yeah, I set up a blind date to get a murderer. I mean, come on.
That's got to go in the book.
Give me an award right now, master. Give me the master award.
And what's funny, when I'm actually myself, I could never ever do anything like that. It's so weird.
Yeah, like in regular life.
Yeah, like I can't flirt to save my life. It's pathetic. It really is.
Yep. Oh, that's good. Yep. Well, I'll jump in real quick then. Mine's fast.
Perfect.
I've been thinking every time I always want to share the pranks that firefighters play on each other, and there's so many of them. But my favorite one was, obviously, if you've been around a while, you already know these pranks. So, like you can get the new guys kind of thing, know. But taking saran wrap, and while everyone's asleep, go to the toilet, put the saran wrap over the toilet, and then because you think like, oh, they won't do it anywhere else, you put it over the door also, like leading out like into the room. So, they wake up in the middle of the night and they're like tired, and they stumble into the bathroom and they go, and they pee all over the place, and everything, and then as long as the lights are off, then the saran wrap on the door works great, because then, the bells go off, you wake up in the middle of the night, you take off running, and then boom, all of a sudden you're in like a thing, like a cocoon of saran wrap, So it's always fun.
Oh my goodness.
And you wonder why people say you get in pillow fights.
Yep. Yep. It's always fun. So that's my
goodness.
What about you?
Right.
Do you have one?
Yeah, I'll go very quickly. So it came to me because this week on Tuesday, I'm talking on the radio show on the Thin Line Rock Station. I'm talking about golf as a coping skill and strategy, and giving some tips for any guys who might get a little bit of grief from their wife for playing golf. I'm like, this is all the reasons that you can throw back at her, so that's okay. But so I was a pretty junior Connie, and we got called for a dead body on a golf course.
A pretty junior what?
Sorry, Connie Constable.
Oh, gotcha.
We used to call her like a Connie.
Yeah.
So yeah, like a trainee. So anyway, so we and that's obviously not funny that someone passed away, but they were like the furthest hole from where they could possibly be. So people are like, you're gonna have to take a golf cart out there, you know, like to be able to get there, sort of thing. So like, okay. So there's me, there's my offsider who was like a, you know, pretty wild, crazy. He was a leading city constable, so like been in the job, I don't know, 20, 25 years, something like that. And our sergeant came because it was a dead body or that kind of thing. And so we're on a golf course. So, and the guy drove and he was like a mental case. So he was fanging that golf cart like so fast along the golf courses. And you got to think about like we're all in uniform. So like I think I'm trying to think where we were sitting. So he was driving, I was beside him holding all of my stuff. And the poor sergeant was like on the back. And then, you know, everyone drinks at like, you know, when they're out playing golf in the middle of the day. It was like 2:00 in the afternoon. And so we're like fanging along on this golf cart. And I just remember like there was like a, you know, group of 3 or 4 guys playing golf, and like I don't have a beer, but like they had like, you know, beers in their hand. They kind of like looked at us and then like looked at their beers and then like looked back at us and then looked at each other, and they were just like deadly silent. They were just like, what
do we do?
Yeah. And I just, that's kind of one thing that I'll like remember, like just like the looks on their faces. They were just like, this is just not really all working together in my head very well, but hopefully it became a little bit of a chuckle. So
that's pretty good.
Yeah. Good. Cheers. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's a perfect one to end on. Everybody cheers. All right.
Hey, phone out, man.
Excellent.
Let's watch this. Yep, that's good. Well, thank you for joining us, Erin. I appreciate what you do.
So much for having me on. This was so much fun. I'll come back anytime you want me.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Awesome.
We'll definitely have you back on. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Awesome.
And if you're new to this stream, the Undercover Dumpster Fire, which we've been kind of avoiding explaining that. We'll explain that more next week.
That's a good idea. We should do that.
We'll explain what that is. Yeah, but for now, if you like this, comment, share, subscribe if you're on YouTube, or if it makes sense, follow along. And if you have questions, feel free to send those. Matt answers or recollects them. We got emails and all that, DMs. Feel free if there's something you want to know, and we can keep it anonymous too.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But be glad to help.
Definitely. Awesome. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in as always. Remember, final message on a serious note. If you're feeling some kind of way, please, there are plenty of people, if you're not law enforcement, reach out to Cop Line. All right, they will listen. They won't ask questions, nothing like that. It's anonymous. You can just reach out and talk and talk and talk. And it's a great way. Remember, Erin's information is in the space. She's also another great one to reach out to. And just reach out. Don't hold things in. I beg you. That's my final message.
Awesome. Yep. Thank you all. We'll
Thanks,
see
everybody.
you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.